Okay, we are setting up the live stream, and I will let some people hop on if they're at home on this cold winter night, and then we'll get started. Okay, so hello everyone, and welcome to our live stream gallery walkthrough. Tonight we will be touring Nyki Fetterman's work, Mysticism Between, which is on view at Akron Soul Train until February 10th. This deeply personal show is a testament to the small moments of joy and care seen in everyday life. As always, thank you to our sponsors who continue to allow us to support these amazing artists and bring innovative exhibitions to the community. Okay, I'm going to switch my camera and we can kind of get going. There we go. Okay, Nyki, can you introduce yourself and maybe talk a little bit about the show?
Yeah, definitely. Hello, my name is Nyki Fetterman. I was the November Artist in Residence at Akron Soul Train, which means that I was able to honestly start my body of work in November. I did finish definitely in December. Wow, going back in time, It's amazing. Yeah, and then I was able to put up my show for January. My show, as Meryl said, is kind of about these little in-between moments. And I find myself kind of like making these little in-between moments of care and of joy, and also of just kind of like human connection in many respects, as these like little sacred, holy moments. So they're kind of, each piece is a little bit of a meditation on either caring for yourself, caring for someone else, or witnessing care in some capacity.
Yeah, okay, where do you want to start? Like, what piece? Just kind of go down the line, or?
You can just go down the line, that's fine.
Okay, great. Well, to start, when we kind of enter this space, we have it blocked off with a curtain, and it's kind of like you're entering this kind of new portal and world. So we'll talk more about that as we go. So we can talk about this one.
Yeah, so this piece is probably, it's kind of a wild piece to start with, because it's probably the most personal piece in the show. So this piece is one that I made kind of meditating on knowing someone who was actively dying from cancer and becoming very, very close with them. And so I use a lot of text in my work. I also write poetry. There's a poem here with the work, and so a lot of the text is kind of like a poetic meditation on knowing him, being close with him, and then kind of what all of that meant. And so there are these kind of like little symbolic parts of it. For example, this here might look kind of like a memorial, and it is serving as one, kind of, but it's actually a drawing of a sculpture at this place called Warden's Woods, which is in Hinckley Reservation, and my friend Jared and I would go there, and we would sit and eat snacks on these really tall ledges, and often go on these hikes and things when he was sick. And so that's kind of one of the, not the last, but like the second to last time I ever took pictures while I was hanging out with Jared. We took pictures at Warden's Woods. So it kind of serves like a dual purpose as like a memorial in my brain, and it also kind of just looks like one.
And it reads as kind of crucifix-like in a way.
Yeah, that is what the sculpture is. So if you haven't been to Warden's Woods, I suggest that people go. It's this like, oh man, the sculptures are so crude. Just there's this guy, I think it was like the late 1800s, and he found out how to carve stone. And so on his family's property, it was really, really like ledgy. There are a bunch of like ledges there with like, they're covered in moss and everything. And he carved these like sand and limestone ledges into really, like, just really bad sculptures. Like, I cannot stress how bad they are, but like there's something about that that's really special to me, because it's also kind of like folk art, and it's been weathered over time, so like they look even weirder. And this one is like right when you get out of the car. It's the only sculpture that is like not in the woods. It's like laying on the grass, and it's just this like crucifix with this like really crude kind of figure of Jesus. So like the way that everything is like foreshortened is actually just like what the sculpture looks like. It's not. It's very odd. The proportions are off. And we would always like laugh at those sculptures and things. But yeah, there's lots of writing in the piece, lots of like little tiny moments that we spent together, and things like that. So
it's like this kind of beautiful ode, but it's also like very much a commentary on our healthcare.
Yeah.
In a way too.
Yeah, definitely. So there are a lot of like political undertones all throughout my artwork. That's something I probably should have talked about in the beginning. But all of these kinds of things where it's like finding the beauty and the joy and the care in these little in-between moments, even though there are lots of things that are kind of dark and disturbing happening in the world around us. Most of them in my brain tie back to politics. So there are things like, just like shelling out tons of money. My friend had just re-enrolled in college when he found out that he was sick, and was never able to start classes or anything because his money was he was choosing whether to put money into his care or whether to go to school, and many other things. Never got to like travel to any places he really wanted to because of kind of the same thing. It was really kind of like hard to see that. Yeah.
Is the choice to be very stark black and white like purposeful for this like sort of sterileness or sadness even?
Yeah, actually that's exactly why it's black and white.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's exactly why I kept it black and white. You may notice that the rest of the show is really colorful and really exciting and kind of energetic. And this piece, I think, still fits very well within the theme. But I did want it to kind of feel sterile, also to feel really like silent and kind of like a little, like, it also kind of forces you to read, which I think is important.
Yeah, the detail is in there, but it's legible, and you're kind of faced with it. Yeah. Okay. Well, I think we can move on to the next piece.
Yeah. So this is a piece I actually included at the very last second. It does fit within the theme of the show. It's called Splendor in the Grass, and it is kind of like an ode to queer joy, and finding my own joy through kind of coming out, and the process of like what that looked like and kind of reconfiguring my life. And it's really kind of special, but there are also, I use like a lot of like bugs in my work, which you'll kind of see in other pieces. And I use a lot of ants to kind of talk about, like, I don't know if you know, but like ant colonies, there's like a queen, and like if the queen dies, all the other ants just die. Like there's not really anywhere for them to go or any purpose that they have. They just kind of like live to work forever. The whole colony also exists as like one body, so like one ant can't really like do things without all the other ants because they exist as like this symbiotic colony. And so I use a lot of ants in my work to kind of show like humans kind of like simultaneously working together and following the leader. So it's kind of like a silly play on like politics and like weird kind of like social commentary, and then it's also kind of like a juxtaposed symbol of like people working together and like nice things.
And
I don't
it's,
know.
yeah, normally
Weird.
at a picnic, you wouldn't want ants on your
No,
blanket.
No, you wouldn't want
But
ants
I
on your
love that
blanket.
symbol.
Yeah, so like it's simultaneously like, all of the kind of like little insidious horrible things about being queer, and also like knowing that I found community there, and found beauty there and found joy there, and it's like everyone is welcome at the picnic, but they might also like steal your food and it might be bad. I don't know. It's like a whole, it's kind of like funny and also kind of sad. But yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's so cool.
Thanks.
Because I was noticing the bugs. Like, we'll see more of the bugs, and because most people, bugs have like a bad connotation or something. So
Yeah. Bugs
Yeah.
for me have, like I was saying, this is kind of like a dual meaning, kind of like funny thing in my brain. I don't know if that like really comes across, but like I make a lot of like tiny little jokes and like use a lot of things that have like these dual, really like opposing meanings, because I think it's funny and fun.
Yeah.
But like some of the bugs are really positive and some of the bugs are really negative, and I love bugs. Like in another life, I would be an entomologist. I just like I really love bugs. So we'll talk about that more in another.
Yeah. Okay, so moving along the wall,
Yeah.
we have this piece.
Yeah. So this is kind of like following that same theme. You'll kind of like see a lot of themes of like queerness kind of coming up in this show. And kind of like what that means to me, and kind of how I've like been able to find myself through really like kind of being honest with myself about who I am. And this piece is kind of about like honor and respect, but like honoring and respecting yourself, and like knowing that it's okay to kind of like I guess knowing that it's okay to like move forward and like change your life pretty drastically, and like that there's a lot of power there, and that there's like a lot of beauty there. So this piece is called Resurrection Antidote, and it's kind of like, I don't know, the apple is like symbolic of this like poison apple.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if you're aware, but violets are a symbol for sapphicness. Sapphicness is like queer, I guess like women loving women, kind of thing. And so it's kind of like there's this like poison apple, and it's kind of like, again, this like insidious like being queer, can kind of like not really be a positive thing. I grew up in like some pretty rural areas, and I kind of struggled with my identity younger in life, and then kind of like pushed it away for a while. And so like that poison apple is kind of like representative of a place that like I had been coming from, and a place that I think a lot of people come from. And then this is kind of like, no, you can like change, you can grow, you can embrace yourself, and a kind of like resurrection through that, like just like a new life, kind of springing forth. But yeah, I mean, there are also like, there's symbolism. I remember, not to, I guess, throw shade at the newscaster, but it was just like a funny thing when we were on TV talking about the show, that he was like, got the chain in there, must be a lot of symbolism, and then they just like moved right on. I was like, yeah, and I like didn't really know like what to say to that in the moment. It was kind of funny, but yeah, the chain kind of like, just as you would think, it's not really that deep, but it does just kind of represent like, kind of like the chains that bind you when you're kind of like binding yourself up, and then being able to like break out of that, like I'm like rising up. To this little
I love these
angel here,
little
kind of, like,
moments outside of that chain, but then like there's gold in the chain,
Yeah.
so there's a lot of really interesting details that kind of like, show both sides or show a transformation.
Yeah,
in a way.
I've always been really, really connected in just like aesthetics to iconography and religious artwork and thinking of kind of holiness. Like I said, I do find these little moments and meditate on them and kind of like think of them as these like holy little moments in my life. And this one with the gold, I'm like tying it right back to that. You'll notice I do use like some metallics in my work, and I'm always kind of tying back to this, like, you know, in Pieces About Me, it's like where I find my spirituality, like where I find God in this wild world, you know, or whatever you want to call it. I don't know. But yeah, so that's kind of why I included the gold. Thanks for bringing that up, because that's kind of like a theme throughout.
I like the sense of this as a window. So like we're on a side that looks like it's black because of the way that you've done the border, and that we're looking in at something that's more bright, and like you want to reach for that instead of staying back behind in the blackness, I guess. Mm-hmm. So when I saw it, I looked at it as like a window into something, you know. And yes, the chain, of course, understanding the chains that bind us, but also feeling like you're, you know, moving it out.
Yeah, Meryl has talked about portals a lot with this show, and like I truly like had not thought of it that much. I mean, like I thought about kind of transporting people into another world because I like to use my art as kind of like, though a lot of this is 2D, I think of it as installation. Like it is building kind of like a whole world for my show. But really, like, there are a lot of things that are very, like, portal-like. Like, you walk through the curtains to come in, and it is, like, a little portal into this, like, very kind of chaotic-looking on the surface, but restful kind of space within the show. And then, like, we'll get to a piece later that kind of is a little portal-like. Meryl was talking about how it kind of, like, pulls you back in the space.
Yeah.
And it's definitely, there are a lot of kind of those sorts of things, and like that thematically works in my brain. After you said that, I was like, oh yeah, portals, okay, cool. I'm gonna like put that in my next show statement. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, going back to kind of like the iconography, religious, spiritual stuff, the whole title of the show is Mysticism Between, and it's about these little like mystic, symbolic, holy meditations throughout the day.
Yeah. Speaking more about, I guess, installation portals, since we have been focusing on this one wall that has this beautiful wallpaper pattern on it. Can you maybe talk about that decision, what that pattern means? Because we'll see it again in other colors.
You will see it again in other colors, yeah. So in my work, I like, nothing really in this show, but a lot of the time when I'm just kind of like doodling or sketching in my sketchbook, I draw these kind of like interior spaces, and I had this drawing for a really, really long time of all of these snakes like going through a house, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, but it had this like wallpaper pattern in it, and I have consistently drawn this wallpaper pattern. So I used to be a teacher, and when I was teaching, I would draw awards for my students, and it would be a drawing of a trophy sitting on a table in front of a wall, and they were like really kind of like surreal looking and strange and like stark black and white. I would just like take a Sharpie and like draw it while a kid was working really quietly, and I'd like walk over and give it to them as like quietest student award, or like somebody who made a new art connection. It would be like most excited about new things, like I don't know, just I would like come up with these awards, but all the time I would draw like this pattern for wallpaper or something that looked really similar behind the trophies, and I just found it as kind of like this little motif that like found its way into a ton of my work. And it started to be something where like I wasn't putting it in my work that I was ever showing, but it was like so within my work, I guess, that I was like, I kind of have to put it in there, because obviously this is like the space that I live in my head looks like this. It would, if it could. I really like the hand-painted wallpaper. But yeah, I think I just had, I was like, I have to put it in the show. Like, it has to live there. And as soon as you guys said I could paint the walls, I was like, it's done.
Yeah, it really just does like create another space that like once you walk in and you're kind of, but it doesn't go all the way up, but you're still kind of immersed within it, and like the colors are all reflecting off of each other. It creates like a really cool, that interior kind of feel of a really weird like Victorian room or something.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I was really excited about how it came out, and I will like throw a shout out. I don't know if any of them will be watching it, but to my friends who helped me paint this, I am so grateful for you. So I drew the pattern in pencil on the wall, and it is not by any means perfect, and not by any means like the sizes are all wonky and off, and like some of it kind of shifts upward. And I was just like, go for it. And I was like, hope you're not a perfectionist. Like, just paint the shapes. And it exceeded my expectations. Like, it really looks cool.
I love the wonkiness.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to one of my favorite pieces in this show, because I really like cake.
Yeah. This has been, a lot of people have come and taken a picture of only this piece. And like posted it, and so I think this has kind of become a lot of people's favorite piece. But I'm gonna like read the little didactic that I wrote because it's really short, and I think that it's really important. So this is your sign that you deserve to have people in your life who will make you your favorite dessert for your birthday. You deserve people who tell you they love you and hold you when you're crying. You deserve forehead kisses and late night laughs and blanket forts and movie nights and long walks and to be heard and to be seen for who you are. You deserve the world. And basically, I'll be very candid. This piece is about a close friend of mine who like really, really loves cake a lot and has never had anyone make them cake for their birthday. And I was like, I don't know why, I just was so sad to hear that, because this person is like an angel. Like I cannot express like how much this person like goes above and beyond for like the people that they love, and just like is so present with you when they're with you, and like to know that like they weren't receiving that kind of like, I don't know, like it hurt me to learn. I don't know. So anyway, I made them cake for their birthday. I threw some shade in the show for fun, and also like some sweetness in there. And they saw it at the opening. It was a nice moment because they knew. It was like,
there's like an interesting juxtaposition to like this darkness that in a lot of what you're talking about, and even in the sense of like not being made cake your entire life for your birthday, but then also paired with this like whimsy, this color, this like be joyful, but even in really hard moments. Do you think that you live by that ethos?
I try to, yeah. I was talking about this last night with a friend, actually. And we were just talking about, like, there's a lot happening right now in the world. There's, like, a lot happening. And it's, like, really, really hard to kind of, like, stay in that light. And making the work for the show was really hard, actually. Because I really had to, like, every day that I was working on it, kind of, like, think about how much, like, you can't give up in the face of, like, stress. And, like, not from the perspective of, like, oh, never give up, you know, like, but, like, really, you can't give in. Like, resilience is, like, resistance in a way. Like, finding your joy is, like, crucial to continuing to live in a way that, like, serves you and serves others. And you can't really serve others if you're not serving yourself with your joy. And it's just, like, this cycle that kind of, like, if you spiral down, like, it's really, really hard to, like, get back up and get back into that. And I've dealt with, like, a lot of anxiety and depression and things in my life, and I feel like I've really, like, gotten to a space where I'm trying really hard not just to, like, look at the positives, because obviously I'm commenting on the negatives, you know, but, like, to really think about how every day I can, like, infuse purpose, you know, and how other people infuse purpose in my life. I think that's really really important, like my friend who, you know, hadn't been made cake, but like they infuse like so much meaning into my life. Like every time that I see them, they're amazing. And I don't know. Yeah. So it's all.
I like that push and pull that you have
Yeah.
in the work. You know.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. The whimsy is definitely there.
Yeah.
I mean, it is whimsical. It is exciting.
But dark.
But it's
dark.
a little dark. Yeah. And this piece is actually like the most joyful and most whimsical and most like self-serving. Pretty much everything from here on out like has nothing. I mean, it does have to do with like little moments in my life, but like much less to do with like my own joy. You know, we've gone from like relationships to like my own joy to larger commentary to my friends, and this one is kind of like for me. So this piece is called Busting Out, and the very like first sentence of the didactic is the bread and butter of life is finding joy in the little moments, finding it in just being myself and honoring the things that make me feel whole is a big part of that. And so 2023 as a whole year for me was like a really big journey. And I made this piece for a show in July, and I felt like I was really like kind of coming into my own at that time, and really thinking about like the things that mattered to me and really starting to like embrace myself and like kind of embrace my strangeness in like a way that I hadn't before, and like just kind of letting myself be myself a little bit. And so like I've always kind of been like the weird kid in like some respects, or like the goofball or like the ham, which like I love to be, so it's fine. But like sometimes it also can feel really like constricting when somebody's like, oh, you're the funny friend, like, oh, you're the silly friend, when you're just really doing things you like. And a big part of that is being neurodivergent. I have pretty like extreme ADHD, and like part of my joy comes from like when I am hyper fixated on something, like I am really excited about it. And so like bugs and rocks and gardening, and I don't know, I learned about golf course architecture and design for like the show a long time ago, and like have thought about it consistently like ever since, because it's just like this weird hyperfixation I got on, and like I used to really shame myself for that a lot, like a lot, and I would like always think that I was kind of like too much, and like always kind of like try to push down the weirdness, or like I'd be on a hike with friends and I'd be like getting really excited to like go look at a mushroom, and then I'd like pull back or something, and I like let myself stop doing that last year, and then like have worked on like not masking very much, and like this piece was kind of like the beginning of all of that, kind of like the beginning of like letting myself just like have that joy and like not really caring about when people misinterpreted it. That was really hard for me, like when people would be like, oh, you're so cute, because it feels very like patronizing, but I also like get to choose what that joy is and like where that joy lies, and like if people are gonna like be like that, it doesn't really matter, because like I'm kind of like living in my own joy, and also like people are trying, like they're being like sweet in their own way, and they don't necessarily realize that it feels strange, but like I don't know. This piece is kind of like all about that. So it's like everything from like finding bugs to like sexual joy to like queerness to like seeing little birds in love to like eating fruit. I don't know, it's just like a bunch of really exciting stuff that I really like and like to do. And also it kind of harkens back to like golf course design. There's like this astroturf on it, which is like really fun.
Yeah, your use of like textures and kind of bulging shapes and different materials
Dimensionality.
is really fun, and yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I love texture. We'll see in a little bit. I work with fiber. I work with like all different mediums of things. I like can't get my hands on enough materials, and I think like my background is kind of in ceramics, but I don't really like have a space to work in ceramics or
Yeah,
anything like
it's
that.
hard.
And I also like to work in enough different ways to where it doesn't really matter. But like I'm always thinking about sculpture. I'm always thinking about installation. I'm always thinking about kind of like building, and I think like my way of doing that in more two-dimensional work is with like texture, pattern, transformation of a space. Yeah. Also, my work is like touchable, which is fun. Not all of it. Like, please don't touch the paper. But if you do come and you want to rub the astroturf, I would be fine with that. And also, the piece we'll see next.
Yeah.
Is this the other portal piece that you were mentioning?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Meryl, do you want to talk about the
Oh,
portal?
well, so when we were kind of hanging the show, this space is really interesting here at Akron Soul Train in like the back part of the gallery, because we have this curtain put up. It kind of encapsulates it, and you're kind of walking into this almost like narrow-ish space, and this portal piece in the back, it kind of pulls you in, and you have that painting kind of around it where you're kind of utilizing the wall space a little bit more, and the pattern is horizontally pulling you in, and it feels like very much like you're entering this elongated tunnel or something like that. I don't know, it's really fun for me to like
Thank you.
see the space utilized in a way like this.
Yeah, it was so fun to utilize the space in a way like this. And as soon as you said portal, I got so excited because it really is portal-like. That piece really draws you, but then you
Yeah.
have everything kind of leading to it, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, and it's kind of the power of like a site-specific install
Yeah.
for certain shows. Like this work shown in another space is not going to look the same or read the same, you know?
Yeah.
So I love that. Okay. We'll go on to the second wallpapered wall.
Yeah. So this is the second wallpaper wall. We have purple instead of blue over here, and I just kind of wanted it to look different. I also was not 100% sure which colors I was going to paint which things until I was in the space and I was deciding, and I also looked at how much paint I have. And I thought I really wanted to do a lot of purple, and I was really glad that I got enough to cover the whole wall.
Yeah.
Because I think this wall is a little more like calm feeling. The other wall is very like bright and exciting and like kind of crazy, and I feel like the first thing you see, and then this wall you kind of like come to if you walk around the way that we've kind of walked around the show, which is kind of the way I like thought of the show in my mind. You kind of walk around and you end at this wall, which still feels kind of wild, but like feels a lot more cozy, and then you walk into the animation, which we'll talk about in a little bit, and that's kind of like a space where you have to like stop and like watch, kind of. So yeah, do you have any questions, or should I just jump into the
I mean, if you want to talk about the snakes and their meaning and how, I don't know how many people know about tufting and rug making.
Yeah, definitely. So many people have a fear of snakes. A lot of people really hate snakes. I can't say whether I like or dislike snakes. I like to see them in nature. However, I'm not like hyped if they're really close to me. And I think a lot of that is because we have a lot of negative connotations through storytelling. We have a lot of negative connotations through, just like culture at large, like calling people snakes when they're deceitful. Like we have like all of these really bad associations with snakes.
Take it all the way back to the Adam and Eve guy.
Well, we can, yeah, snakes are like this scary thing. We have like the snakes with Adam and Eve. I even write about how in like a bunch of Abrahamic religions, like snakes are represented as these like horrible things. And snakes are also like feared because a lot of them have venom and they can bite you and you can die. So like snakes are kind of scary, but like because they're so scary in like religious culture specifically, and then like going through to like people and pop culture and people saying mean things about snakes, we think of them as scary. And I also know that in Greek mythology, there was this person, and I always mess up the name, Asclepius?
Don't know.
Anyway, this guy was like a healer of sorts, and it was because in the myth, these snakes kind of like crawled up his body and licked the inside of his ears, which is weird. And then he was able to like heal people from that. But like part of the healing was also like if snakes would like slither over the bodies of people who were ill or people who had like emotional disturbances at that time, that they were seen as like this healing thing, that like the snake would slither over, and once the snake was gone, it would like carry all of your ailments away. And that is why we have the medical staff.
Oh yeah, it's a snake. Yeah.
So snakes are actually also seen as like a sign of healing. So they have this dual meaning, like a lot of like the dual meanings kind of throughout the show. And I made them very like touchable and soft and approachable. And you can touch them. It's important to touch them because it kind of like goes along with it. Snakes don't always have to be this like really scary thing. They can also be this kind of like beautiful and special thing. And I kind of think that that's like a metaphor for the show, that like we can find these little moments of like the best parts of humanity and like the best parts of care and the best parts of love in these things that really are like pretty bad, you know? Yeah, and so they're really special. And I make rugs, which is cool. And you can make rugs many different ways. I encourage people to like go on, I'll say TikTok, but you can also go on Instagram and like just look up the hashtag tufting, Tufting, and you'll see people doing it. So basically, if you've ever done punch needle embroidery, the way that that works is you feed some thread through this little long punch needle, and then you punch through the fabric, and every time you punch through the fabric, it makes a loop of yarn on one side and basically sews on the other side. And so what you're left with is this kind of loop pile carpet thing on one side, and a sewn carpet that is kind of like Berber carpet that you might have in like your office or something, or your home, on the other side. And so what I use is I just basically use like a mechanical version of that called a tufting machine, or a tufting gun. And you really do, you press it into the fabric and you pull this little trigger, and as you're doing it, you can like essentially sew into the fabric vertically a little line that loops for you on the other side and makes a carpet. The one that I have also has a tiny pair of scissors that come out and they cut as it goes up. So that's where you get this like shag carpet kind of effect from the tufting machine, is the cut pile gun. I also have a loop pile machine, but it's a little bit harder to use, and like I like to make really small loops, which is very fun, and the rugs look really nice. But if you like pull the gun away a little too fast, it's just like punch needle. It like undoes all the stuff that you just did. Whereas the cut pile one, you can pull out each individual like cut part of yarn, but it's not going to mess up any of the row that you just did. So I always mess up a little bit when I use the loop pile for a while.
Oh yeah, I love the use of like a functional craft basically, and like using a machine that makes functional craft into like this truly like fine art installation medium, it's really cool use of materials and commentary on that even.
Thank you. Thanks. Yeah, I mean, like, coming kind of from like a ceramics background, the kind of like, is it art, is it craft kind of thing has always like been in my brain. And like even some of the other pieces in this show, like, is it fine art? I don't know if you're looking at something with a bunch of bugs and polymer clay and astroturf, like, is that art? Is that like me crafting in my living room with polymer clay? I'm not really sure, but like I also think that art should be accessible. And so like I use a lot of like kind of fun, pretty accessible materials. You know, I also use things like expensive watercolor paper and inks and, you know, acrylic and whatever else. And yarn is like pretty expensive. But I think like there's also something really special about kind of blurring that line, and not just like creating fine art for the sake of creating fine art.
And like that definition that doesn't even really exist.
It doesn't. It's just that like what we have thought about in our brains as art versus craft is mainly things that like someone more domestic in nature may have done. Typically like a woman maybe would be like mending the clothes, or maybe would be sewing the things, or maybe would be making the jars, or maybe would be using those jars to carry things, or you know, all of these things, making the rugs. All of that is kind of like we think of materials that are used in domestic crafts as craft. This is like an aside totally to the whole show, but also kind of ties back as far as accessibility goes. In like, I wrote a lot for the pieces, and that's not really just because like I fancy myself a writer. It's also because like I think it's important when there is work that is not super straightforward and representational that you make it accessible in some way. For a long time, I always kind of thought that writing about pieces, like, I was like, I want the pieces to speak for themselves. I don't need to write about it. But then I was kind of thinking about it in the context of this show, and thinking about how, like, no, I do really want to write about this. Like, it's very personal, and I think that people should be able to spend time with it. And if they don't want to, that's fine too. And art should speak, like, you should be able to look at it and decide if you like it or if you don't in, like, 10 seconds. But if you can go deeper and you can kind of create meaning for art, it's important that anyone can view art.
That's right.
We don't just want art to be something that is like viewable or made about people who are in these like high fine art institutions, you know, like we want art to be accessible. And like I think that's also like kind of part of this show is like there's a lot that's like personal and narrative and like about people, and like none of the people that things are about in this show are like, you know, people who would be weirded out by a space that was not all white and like had paintings like in a row, you know, like it's about people who are like normal people. And I think that like you can like what you like, but there is a certain importance to like accessibility in artwork.
Yeah, I think you've created enough interest that you're like sparking curiosity to delve a little deeper into like what these mean, because again, you can have that 10-second like, do I like what I'm seeing? Maybe I find it all fun and like, you know, energizing, but then when you start to dig a little deeper, you know, like I think it sparks curiosity.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like to do that with my work. I also like, I mean, totally candidly, like I am a person who will walk into a museum and I will just be like, okay, like just kind of like walk, you know, and like until something really catches me, I might not read about it. And that's fine if people also do that with this show, because like having a language of aesthetics in your head that you like is really important. And some people might be like off-put by this show, and that's also cool. I don't mind that, but I do want it to be something that they can dive into if they want to.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move on to the last piece of the show.
Yeah, definitely.
Super exciting, and my video is not going to capture this piece as well as if you came in person, but I will try my best.
You have until February 10th.
You do
And you have until February 10th.
And I really do suggest seeing it in this space. I really do think that it's important to. I think seeing it so big is really nice, but if you don't have a chance to get here, I did just post it on my own Instagram, the entire thing. And my Instagram is at Nyki Makes, and that's NYKIMAKES.
We'll tag it or something.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I'm not like plugging my own Instagram for clout, but I'm doing it because if you do really want to see the whole animation and see all of like the colors looking really nice, it is there for you.
So yeah, can you talk a little bit about like the kind of impetus to make the animation, the concepts behind each little moment, and yeah, if anyone is interested in the process a little bit, you guys can ask questions on the comments too.
Yes, I would love questions in the comments. Please, please, please ask. This piece is, it's pretty heavy at times, and it's also pretty light at times, just like lots of parts of the show. I wanted to make this animation and play it on a loop because I kind of wanted it to be something that's like this constant reel of like good versus evil, kind of. There's a lot of like good versus evil like in the show, you know, snakes, good versus evil. But it's also very, very personal and very global at the same time. So what we're watching right now, I did mention earlier that I was a teacher, and I have definitely cried during lockdown drills with my students. But in that, I do find little tiny moments of care, and it's also resilience, you know, to be able to be like, I don't know what's gonna happen, but I will keep you safe, and just like push through that. Each little one is kind of like a vignette of a certain moment in my life or something I've witnessed. We'll get to the part where I think we kind of came in around this part right here, where like we're seeing journalists still right now from Gaza, like informing the entire world of everything that's happening there. And I think that that is like one of the biggest acts of care that you could possibly do, to like show up day in and day out when like your friends and your family are dying, and like to just like tell everyone what's going on. I don't know. So like there are moments like that, and there are moments like lockdowns, and there are also moments like my partner getting in my car for the first time and looking at my little collection of rocks, because I love to collect rocks and I have them in my car, and opening their bag and digging deep in their bag, and I had no clue what they were doing, and they took out the most beautiful seashell I've ever seen and just placed it on top of the rocks. So like that's also like, I felt really seen in that moment. That was no longer something that was like silly or cute that I collect rocks. It was something where somebody was seeing it and saying, I'm adding to your collection something from mine. So I don't know. I think everything in the world is kind of full circle, and that's what the whole animation is about.
It's really wonderful to see these kind of like small, almost like something that could be considered by some people to be maybe insignificant moments of care next to these really big kind of gestures or really big things that people are doing, and to like just show them both and just show what all people can do,
Yeah.
like in just little things.
And also to like not miss it. Not miss
Yeah.
it when it's big and not miss it when it's small. I think is probably like the best we can do, just moving through the world.
You give them equal weight, you know,
Yeah.
a big gesture or a little gesture. In the way that you display it, you're giving this like these little tiny moments of care equal weight, which is what I like.
Well, I think like in my heart they are equal weight, because a lot of the little tiny moments that I've infused are ones that are personal to me and like the ones that make me want to keep going, I guess. Yeah, and so it feels important. Challenges with making the animation, because it's so huge and it had to be high resolution. I could only make 25 frames at a time, and there are 277. So I had to keep exporting every tiny video of 25 frames, which was maybe like one of these little things, and maybe one of them is like 8 exports long, you know. And so that was like kind of challenging, because I had to export a ton of them and like splice them all together and make it really seamless. And that was a new challenge I had never done before. I just started animating last year, and I totally fell in love with animation. I use Procreate for animation, but I also put this all together. Thank God some people I know have TikToks. They told me about this thing called CapCut, which is really easy to use to splice videos together. So anyone can do it.
Yeah.
This is not, I'm not asking CapCut to sponsor me, but if they want to, they can. Yeah, that was fun to do.
It's like another, like this medium isn't something that you might normally see in a gallery. Like more and more, yes, but like it's kind of another way to like bring another medium into a space, having a moving image, showing at a gallery that's hand drawn. Like,
You're putting together your love of like design, font. We talked about that earlier.
Yeah.
Storytelling, imagery, like, again, going back to this conversation about accessibility.
Yeah.
In a very accessible way. Everybody understands the moving image, you know,
Yeah.
or I don't want to say cartoon, that's a terrible
You can.
term, but you know, like an
Yeah.
illustrative
Yeah.
story. So anyway, that's kind of like the culmination of everything out here is sort of like right here. you know?
Yeah, thank you. And that is like how I kind of imagine moving through the space in my brain, is exactly the way that we did it. Kind of going from this like really kind of dark place starting to like all of these bright little spots of joy, to like really thinking about all of that, and then like having it kind of like hit you in the animation. And this is my favorite piece in the show. I like kind of like some of the other processes that I used, but I think that this piece really just explains what the entire show's about.
do you see yourself doing more animation like in the future?
Oh yeah, like if I could animate and learn to tattoo and just have that be my entire life's work, like I would do it. I love animation so much. I bought an iPad for Procreate to make digital art and digital flash sheets, and I have barely used it for that. I've like only made animation, which was like very unexpected. I did not expect to make animations, but I fell in love with it. I love it. It's really fun.
Like, I love that like discovery of a new medium, like
Yeah,
is always so exciting.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think so too. Should we step out? Are there
Yeah.
any questions?
Well, if there are any questions from those of you watching, now is a great time to ask. If you ask after the live stream, I will get them to Nyki. Thank you so much for your comments so far. They said, I love the animation. Yeah, and the other one said, yay, Nyki.
Cool.
So,
Yay, you.
yeah.
For sitting through this. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for sharing your work
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
us and the Acro community. We
Yeah.
appreciate it.
I'm really, really, really thankful for this experience, and I am like, I'm like over the moon about how this show turned out, to be honest. Like I don't think I could have like put together a more like me body of work. I don't know. To like be given the opportunity to do that is like really special. So thank you also.
Yeah.
It's-
Well, another person just said, I love this show and I'm so excited for you in this experience. You are amazing. So I think that might be a really good
How sweet.
way to start to conclude the live stream. Thank you all so much for joining us on the live stream. If you're watching this after the live stream as well.
Is it just on me? Sorry.
Yeah, well, it is. Oh yeah, I can turn it. Sorry, I forgot.
Let's end on the portal. Let's end.
Yeah,
End on the portal.
we'll end on the portal.
Oh, this portal.
Yeah. No, I'm facing that way.
Oh, it's fine. Never mind.
We're good. So remember, Nyki's work will be on view until February 10th. So you guys still have some time to come down and see it. Alongside Nyki's work is Gina Washington's work, Universal Child, which is also on view until February 10th. We'll be having a closing kind of walkthrough program then as well. So keep an eye out for that on Facebook, on our website. Our normal gallery hours are Wednesday through Saturday from 11 to 4. And so you can, check back here on Facebook, check our Instagram, check our website for updates and other programming. And we'll see you in the next live stream.
Great. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.